I mean, your book in general, the way you lead is very much about we and us. The power of we. But is there times when a leader has to step in and be almost autocratic, take control, and make hard, unpopular decisions?
Oh, I am sure you know the answer to that. And it is, of
It's
course,
just
yes.
fun to hear you
It's
say it.
fun to say it. Yeah. You know, because I actually, there's a leader for a time, but then there's a leader for a situation, right? And so I've had to do plenty of unpopular things. I think anytime you have to run a company that endures a century and has to endure another
Yeah.
century, you will do unpopular things. You have no choice. And I often felt I had to sacrifice things for the long term. And whether that would have been, really difficult things like, job changes or reductions, or whether it would be things like, hey, we're going to change the way we do our semiconductors
Mhm.
and a whole different philosophy. You have no choice. I mean, and in times of crisis as well, you got to be. I always said it's not a popularity contest. So that's none of these jobs are popularity contests. I don't care if your company's got one person or 500,000. They're not popularity contests.
But psychologically, is it difficult to just sort of step in as a new CEO and to because you're fighting against tradition, against all these people that act like experts of their thing, and they are experts of their thing, to step in and say we have to
Yeah.
do it differently.
When you got to change a company, it's really tempting to say throw everything else out, back to that
Sure.
what must endure, right?
Yeah.
But I know when I took over to start, I knew how much had to change. The more I got into it, I could see, wow, a lot more had to change, right? Because we needed a platform. We'd always done our best when we had a platform, a technology platform. You will go back in time and you'll think of the mainframe systems. You'll think of the PC. You'll think of perhaps middleware. You could even call services a platform. We needed a platform, the next platform here to be there. Skills. When I took over, we inventoried who had modern skills for the future, it was 2 out of 10 people for the future. Not that they didn't have relevant skills today, but for the future, 2 out of 10. Yikes, that's a big problem, right? The speed at which things were getting done so you got so much to do, and you say, is that a scary thing? Yes. Do you have to sometimes dictate? Yes. But I did find, and it is worth it. I know every big company I know, my good friend that runs General Motors, as she's had to change, go back to what is them. And when you do that back to be essential, we kind of started with, hey, it's be essential. Then the next thing I did with the team was say, okay, now this means new era of computing, new buyers are out there, and we better have new skills. Okay, now the next thing, how do you operationalize it? And it just takes some time, but you can engineer that and get people to build belief.
And for the skills, that means hiring and that means training.
Yes. Yeah. Oh boy, skills is a really long topic in and of itself. I try to put my view in it. I learned a lot and I changed my view on this a lot. Um, I'll go back at my very beginning, say 40 years ago. I would have said at that point, okay, I was always in a hurry. I was interviewing to hire people. I don't know how you hire people. 40 years ago, I'd be like, okay, I got to fit in these interviews. I got to hire someone to get this done.
Yeah.
Okay. Then time would go on. I'm like, oh, that's not very good. In fact, someone once said to me, hey, hire the best people to work for you and your job gets a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I should spend more time on this topic. I spend more time on it. Then it was like, okay, hire experts. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hired a lot of experts over my life. And then I was really like an epiphany, and it really happened over my tenure running the company and having to change skills. If someone's an expert at something and has just done that for 30 years, the odds of them really wanting to change a lot
Mm-hmm.
are pretty low. And when you're in a really dynamic industry, that's a problem. And so, okay, that was like kind of my first revelation on this. And then when I looked to hiring, I can remember when I started my job, we needed cyber people. And I go out there and I look, unemployment in the US was almost 10%. Can't find them. Okay, it's 10% and I can't find the people. Okay, what's the issue? Okay, they're not teaching the right things. That led me down a path, and it was serendipity that I happened to do a review of corporate social responsibility. We had this one little fledgling school in a low income area, and high school with a community college. We gave them internships, direction on curriculum. Lo and behold, we could hire these kids. I said, this is not CSR. Like, I just found a new talent pool, which takes me to now what I'm doing in my post retirement. I'm like, this idea that don't hire just for a college degree. We had 99% of our hires were college and PhDs, and I'm all for it. So you're very don't.
I'm deeply offended.
No, you should not be. I'm vice chair at Northwestern, one of the vice chair.
Yeah.
But I said, I just really like aptitude does not equal access. These people didn't have access, but they had aptitude. It changed my whole view to skills first. And so now for hiring, that's kind of a long story to tell you. The number one thing I would hire for now is somebody's willingness to learn. And you can test, you can try different ways, but their curiosity and willingness to learn, hands down, I will take that trait over anything else they have.
So the interview process, the questions
Changed.
you ask,
Everything changed.
the kind of things you talk to them about is try to get at how curious they are about the world.
You can do testing, and I mean, we triangulated around it lots of ways. And now look, they're at the heart of it. What it would do is change. You don't think of buying skills. You think of building skills. Mm-hmm. And when you think that way, with so many people, and I think this country, many developed countries being disenfranchised, you got to bring them back into the workforce somehow. And they got to get some kind of contemporary skills. And if you took that approach, you can bring them back into the workforce.
Yeah, I think some interesting combination of humility and passion. Because like you said, experts sometimes lack humility if they call themselves an expert for a few too many years. So you have to have that beginner's mind and a passion to be able to aggressively, constantly be a beginner at everything and learn and learn and learn.
I saw it firsthand when we were beginning this path, down the cloud and AI, and we said, and people would say, "Oh, IBM, it's existential. They got to change and all these things." And I did hire a lot of people from outside, very willing to learn new things. Come on in. And I sometimes say shiny objects, trained in shiny objects. Come on in. But I saw something. It was another one of these. Yeah. You're not a shiny object. I'm not saying that. But I learned something. Okay, some of them did fantastic, and others, they're like, "Well, let me school you on everything." But they didn't realize, like, we did really mission critical work, and they'd break a bank. I mean, they would not understand the certain kind of security and the auditability and everything they had to go on. And then I watched IBM people say, "Oh, I actually could learn something." Some were like, "Yeah, okay, I don't know how to do. That's a really good thing I could learn." And in the end, there was not like one group was a winner and one was a loser. The winners were the people who were willing to learn from each other. I mean, it was, to me, it was a very stark example of that point. And I saw it firsthand. So that's why I'm so committed to this idea about skills first. And that's how people should be hired, promoted, paid, you name it.
Yeah, the AI in general, it seems like nobody really understands now what the future will look like. We're all trying to figure it out. So like what, IBM will look like in 50 years in relation to the software business to AI is unknown. What Google will look like, what all these companies, we're trying to figure it out. And that means constantly learning, taking risks, all of those things. And nobody is really skilled in AI. It's like, because you have
You're
to keep
absolutely
evolving,
right. That's right. Couldn't agree more with you on that.
You wrote in the book, so speaking of hiring, quote, "My drive for perfection often meant I only focused on what needed to change without acknowledging the positive. This could keep people from trusting themselves. It could take me a while to learn that just because I could point something out didn't mean I should. I still spotted errors, but I became more deliberate about what I mentioned and sent back to get fixed. I also tried to curtail my tendency to micromanage and let people execute. I had to stop assuming my way was the best or only way. I was learning that giving other people control builds their confidence and that constantly trying to control people destroys it." So what's the right balance between showing the way and helping people find the way?
That is a good question, because like a really flip answer would be, as it gets bigger, you have no choice but to just, you can't do it. You have to tell or show. I mean, you've got to let people find their way because it's so big, you can't, right? That's an obvious answer. Scope of work, bigger it gets, okay, I've got to let more stuff go. But I have always believed that a leader's job is to do as well. And I think there's like a few areas that are really important that you always do. Now, it doesn't mean you're showing. So like when it has to do with values and value-based decisions, like I think it's really important to constantly show people that you walk your talk on that kind of thing. is super important. And I actually think it's a struggle young companies have because those values aren't deeply rooted. And when a storm comes, it's easy to uproot. And so I always felt like when it was that time, I showed it. I got taught that so young at IBM and even General Motors that, in fact, I do write about that in the book. First time I was a manager, I had a gentleman telling dirty jokes, and not to me, but to other people, and it really offended people and some of the women. This is the very early '80s, and they came, said something. I talked to my boss. I'm a first time manager, and he was unequivocal with what I should do. He said, and this was a top performer, it stops immediately or you fire him. So there are a few areas like that that I actually think you have to always continue to role model and show, right? That to me isn't the kind that, like, when do you let go of stuff, right? So
The values and relationships with clients.
yeah, whatever you're in service of. And the other thing was, I really felt it was really important to role model learning, right? So, I can remember when we started down the journey and we went on to this thing, we called it Think Academy. IBM's longtime motto had been Think. And we said, okay, I'm going to make the first Friday of every month compulsory education. And okay, I mean, everybody, I don't care what your job is. Okay. When the whole company has to transform, everybody's got to kind of have some skin in this game and understand it. I taught the first hour of every month for 4 years. Now,
Nice.
okay, I had to learn something. But it made me learn. But I'm like, okay, if I can teach this, you can do it, right? I mean, kind of thing.
So it was a compulsory Thursday night education for you.
Oh, a little bit. I'm a little
So-
bit better prepared than that. But
Okay,
yes,
sure.
you're so right. Yes.